Vanessa Trump, Donald Trump Jr.'s wife, has filed for divorce. Our chief national correspondent, Tom Llamas, is here, with more on this Good Morning Tom, Vanessa Trump, and Donald Trump Jr., his 12-year marriage, which was blessed with 5 children, ended with their divorce in March 2018, a $100,000 engagement ring sealed their commitment in 2004, but their seemingly perfect union wouldn't last forever. Their marriage started falling apart under mounting external pressures. Now I get it, you might be wondering why I talk about this now. Well, because new info just surfaced. Stick with me to the very end, because we'll finally find out what really pushed Vanessa over the edge. Let's get into it. How Vanessa and Don Jr. met. It's 2003, the kind of year where low-rise jeans ruled, and the OC was everyone's favorite drama. Vanessa Hayden, a model, an actress, with the kind of presence that makes heads turn, without even trying, is at a fashion show in Manhattan, minding her business, just soaking in the glitz and glam of it all. Suddenly, who walks up to her? None other than Donald Trump Sr. And guess what he says? "Hi, I'm Donald Trump. I wanted to introduce you to my son, Donald Trump Jr." But here's where it gets kind of funny and a little awkward, because later during the same fashion show, Trump Sr. comes back to her acting like he's never spoken to her before. He's like, "I don't think you've met my son, Donald Trump Jr.?" And Vanessa, totally unfazed, goes, "Yeah, we just met like 5 minutes ago." You can almost see the look on her face. Right, that is this man for real kind of expression. And honestly, at that point, there was zero spark between her and Don Jr. It wasn't like a movie where their eyes lock and fireworks go off. Nah, the conversation was short, a bit stiff, and totally forgettable. You know, those moments where you're like, well, that was nothing. Yeah, that was this. She kept quiet for years while the cameras followed her everywhere, while the tabloids guessed and gossiped. Vanessa Trump said almost nothing. What made her suddenly walk away from the high life, the fame and the Trump empire? Was it something Donald Jr. did? Or something she just couldn't keep ignoring? Sit tight, because the real reason Vanessa Trump pulled the trigger on her divorce isn't just eye-opening. It's the kind of thing you'll still be thinking about long after this video ends, so naturally you'd think that's the end of the story, right? Like, Trump Sr.'s matchmaking attempt fell flat, and everyone went their separate ways, but oh no, the universe had other plans. About 6 weeks later, Vanessa and Don Jr. randomly run into each other again at a friend's birthday dinner in New York. After 2 introductions, they were still like, "Nice to meet you." You gotta laugh at that, right? But here's the twist this time. Things were different. No hovering dad, no pressure, no weird energy, just 2 people having a totally normal conversation. Vanessa even said they talked for like an hour, just vibing. And then mid-chat, it hit them. We've met before. And then Vanessa, being her blunt self, apparently blurts out, "Oh, you're the one with the retarded dad." But instead of getting offended or ending the conversation, they just kept talking like it was no big deal, which honestly kind of tells you something about their connection. It wasn't perfect or polished. It was just real messy, unexpected. And maybe that's why it worked from there. The relationship took off. No fancy setups, no matchmaking schemes. Just 2 people who kept bumping into each other until something clicked. They started dating not long after that party, and slowly their lives started intertwining. And then comes the proposal. Now brace yourself, because this isn't your typical down on one knee, rose petals everywhere kind of story. Number Don Jr. proposed in a mall at the Short Hills Mall in New Jersey. To be exact, why? Because he struck a deal with a jeweler. A big, shiny 4-carat diamond ring, worth around $100. No rosero was handed over in exchange for a publicity stunt. The condition, he had to pop the question right there in front of Bailey Banks and Biddlefine Jewelers. While paparazzi captured every angle, the two tied the knot at none other than Mar-a-Lago, the Trump family's ultra-luxe estate in Palm Beach, Florida. You know, the same place where Trump Sr. had married Melania just 10 months earlier. Talk about keeping it in the family, right? It was this big glamorous event. Everything you'd expect from a Trump wedding, but under all that glitz, there was still that quirky, almost accidental love story that started with awkward small talk and a surprise run-in at a birthday party. And here's the thing. For 12 years, Vanessa and Don Jr. actually made it work. They had 5 kids together. 5, their lives were busy, high profile, and often in the tabloids. But for over a decade, they kept things moving. Of course, like a lot of celebrity relationships, it eventually came to an end. They divorced in 2018, and the media went wild with speculation as expected. But looking back, it's kind of wild how it all began, right, when politics entered their lives. You know how sometimes a relationship just shifts in a way that you never see coming? Like one day things are normal, and the next it feels like you're living in an entirely different world with a person you barely recognize. That's exactly what happened with Don Jr. and Vanessa Trump when the whole political circus of the two 2016 presidential campaign stormed into their lives before. That they were just living their version of a relatively low-key life. Well, as low-key as you can be when you're part of the Trump family in Manhattan. But once Donald Trump Sr. decided to run for president, and actually won everything, and I mean everything got flipped upside down, their home life, their social life, even their sense of privacy, it all just evaporated, literally gone. And it wasn't like it happened gradually. It was like they went to sleep as just another New York City couple raising kids, and woke up at the center of one of the most divisive political storms in modern American history. Can you even imagine what that does to a marriage? One day you're making school lunches, and the next you've got Secret Service agents standing in your elevator that's not just a small adjustment. It's a whole new life. And not one. Either of them signed up for people close to Vanessa. Said it best, their world used to revolve around friends, family outings, and the usual chaos of raising 5 kids. They had a pretty active social circle, especially in New York City, which tends to lean more liberal. So when Trump Sr. won, it was like the social rug got pulled right out from under them. Friends stopped calling. Invitations dried up, and suddenly it felt like they were on an island. Politically and socially, the loneliness of it all. That part really stung now. Don Jr., he didn't exactly ease into this new reality. He dove in, head first. He and his brother Eric took over running the Trump Organization. But that wasn't all. Don Jr. also turned into this relentless political machine. He was on the road campaigning for Republican candidates, tweeting up a storm and defending his father at every turn. It was like politics had swallowed him whole. And Vanessa, she was left behind in the dust, trying to keep her head above water and raise 5 kids amid all the chaos. And here's where it gets really tough. Don Jr. wasn't just busy, he was gone. Emotionally, mentally, physically. People close to the couple said it bluntly. He's been absent from this marriage, like just not there. Not present in that kind of emotional distance. It chips away at a relationship piece by piece. But for Vanessa, the politics wasn't even the hardest part. It was the security. Imagine not even being able to take your kids to the park without a whole entourage. Like, how do you even begin to explain to your kids why they can't just be kids. That kind of constant pressure. It's like being trapped in a glass box where everyone's watching, but you can't breathe. And the numbers back it up. When you look at the sheer volume of protected trips, the Trump family took over 600 a year, compared to the Obamas' 133 or so. It's mind-blowing. It drained the Secret Service's budget and forced the agency to ask for more money. So not only was Vanessa dealing with the emotional toll of a disappearing husband, but also the never-ending complications of being thrust into high-level security protocols that weren't designed for people just trying to live a normal life. And Don Jr., he changed people at Mar-a-Lago. Noticed he became cold, distant. Even angry gone was. The guy who used to joke around and light up the room in his place was someone burdened by scrutiny and pressure. Someone who built walls to survive the madness. And Vanessa, she was stuck watching all of this unfold like a movie she never wanted to be in. She didn't sign up to be a political wife. She didn't want to be part of a public soap opera. She just wanted to raise her kids. Keep her head down and protect what little privacy they had left. But that became nearly impossible. So, the No 16 campaign didn't just change American politics. It completely transformed and ultimately unraveled Don Jr. and Vanessa's marriage. It turned what used to be a private, somewhat normal family life into something unrecognizable. And in the end, no amount of loyalty to politics, power, or even family legacy could hold that crumbling foundation together. From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale. A model marries into one of the most powerful families in America, lives in luxury, raises 5 kids, and smiles for the cameras. But behind the scenes, it was a whole different story. Vanessa Trump's marriage wasn't what it seemed, and after years of playing the quiet, loyal wife, she finally walked away, and now we know exactly why. But what pushed her to that point? What finally made her say enough? Was it infidelity? Pressure from the Trump name? Or was there something even more personal? You'll want to stay right till the very end, because what she put up with for so long will have you shaking your head. The Russia investigation's impact on their marriage. So let's just talk about what went down with Don Jr. and Vanessa. Because it was way more than just the typical Hollywood-style political marriage. Falling apart, you know how people say, politics ruins everything. Well, in their case, it kind of did. Except this wasn't just any kind of politics. It was the full-blown high-stakes front page, everyday type of mess that came crashing into their personal lives like a wrecking ball after the 2016 or 16 election. And honestly, if you're trying to hold your marriage together while being knee-deep in one of the most intense political investigations in modern American history, it's not hard to imagine how things would start unraveling fast. I mean, how do you even try to be normal when you're basically being watched 24/7? It all started when that Russia investigation kicked off. You remember the whole, did the Trump campaign collude with Russia situation that had half the country glued to their TVs and the other half yelling about fake news? At first it was political, right? But then it just seeped into everything. Suddenly Don Jr. wasn't just a campaign guy or Trump's son. He was a person of interest, a name in the headlines, a walking tweeting symbol of controversy. And while all that drama was unfolding in public behind closed doors, his marriage to Vanessa was taking major hits, like real damage. The kind of damage that doesn't show up in public statements, but plays out in long silences at the dinner table, missed date nights and sleeping in separate rooms, and of course Donald Trump Sr., never one to miss an opportunity to spin a narrative, blamed it all on the so-called witch hunt. You could practically hear his voice when he said it, right. He was out there telling reporters, and anyone who'd listened that the investigation wrecked his son's marriage. Russia, Russia. Russia, all the crap they put Don through. He said as if that was the whole story, and it kind of became the family line. But the truth was way messier. While Trump Sr. painted his family as innocent victims of political attacks, what was really happening inside that marriage had more layers than a wedding cake. Don Jr. started to change, and not in a subtle way. Friends at Mar-a-Lago said he was just off isolated, angry like the guy who used to crack jokes and work. The room suddenly wanted nothing to do with anyone. Imagine living with someone who's constantly on edge, whose mood depends on the latest headline, or legal development. That's a lot. And poor Vanessa. She wasn't just dealing with a husband under pressure. She was dealing with someone who bit by bit was becoming a shell of himself. How do you hold on when the person you married is slipping away emotionally? And let's not forget, Don Jr. wasn't just twiddling his thumbs during all this. He was helping run the Trump organization with his brother Eric, basically trying to hold down the family business while also fending off Twitter trolls, media scrutiny, and potential legal trouble from Robert Miller's team. No pressure, right? He started lashing out online, and you could just feel the bitterness in every post. This wasn't a guy trying to explain himself anymore. He was on the attack, and people close to him. Even they were like, yikes. Someone once said during one of his committee breaks, he was making dumb jokes about the whole thing. Like, can you believe I'm even here? It was like watching someone try to laugh through the worst moment of their life. Another person flat out called him too stupid to be malicious. That's harsh, but it paints a picture of someone totally in over his head, just lost by the time the tabloids caught wind of Vanessa filing for divorce in March 2018. The writing was already on the wall. People were whispering that it wasn't just infidelity or growing apart. It was the whole package. The media circus, the politics, the way Don Jr. had changed. How could anyone be the same after being dragged through that kind of public mess, and then came the Trump Tower meeting, that infamous June 9th, 2016 meeting that just poured gasoline on the fire? The Russians were offering dirt on Hillary Clinton, and Don Jr. jumped at it like it was a golden ticket. If it's what you say, I love it. He wrote back that one line, became the soundbite of the entire investigation. He later tried to downplay the meeting, saying it was about Russian adoption policies, which come on really, but then had to backtrack when the truth started catching up. And Vanessa, she was dealing with a fallout in real time security concerns ramped up. The media wouldn't stop, and her husband was spiraling deeper into this political mess. It wasn't just a PR problem anymore. It was a safety issue, a family issue, a marriage issue. Eventually, the pressure cooker exploded. One source said, the light just went out in his eyes. And honestly, that says everything. That light, whatever spark kept their marriage going, it just disappeared. The love, the laughter, the stability, it got buried under Sopranos headlines and angry tweets. And Vanessa, like anyone who's reached their breaking point, finally stepped away. So, was it really just the investigation that ended their marriage? Or was it the way the investigation exposed everything else that was already broken? That's the big question, the white powder incident. Okay, so imagine waking up on what seems like a regular Monday morning. You're probably thinking about breakfast, getting the kids ready, maybe checking your phone for texts or emails, but instead the day turns into something out of a nightmare. That's exactly what happened to Vanessa Trump on February 12th, 2018. Now let's pause for a second. Can you even imagine being in her shoes? Vanessa was at her mom's place in Midtown Manhattan that morning, just doing something completely ordinary. Opening the mail, her mother, Bonnie Hayden, had handed her a letter that had come in addressed to her husband, Donald Trump Jr. Harmless, right? Except it wasn't as soon as Vanessa tore open that envelope. She found something absolutely terrifying. Inside an unidentified white powder. Yep, white powder if. Your heart just skipped a beat. Reading that. Imagine how she felt. And to make things worse, there was also a threatening note in the envelope. Like, what kind of person even does that? Who wakes up in the morning and decides to send something potentially deadly to someone's wife and mother? Vanessa immediately began coughing and feeling sick. That moment must have felt like a slow-motion horror movie. She didn't wait around to see what would happen. She dialed 911 right away, and within minutes her world was completely turned upside down. Police officers, firefighters, the freaking Secret Service. All swarmed the apartment. Hazmat suits, sirens. The whole dramatic, terrifying scene. Vanessa, her mom, and someone else who had been nearby were all rushed to the hospital after being decontaminated, on-site decontaminated. Can you believe that, just for opening mail? And here's the thing. This wasn't even the first time the Trump family had dealt with this kind of madness back in 2016. Don Jr.'s brother, Eric Trump, also got a similar envelope at his place. Even Trump Tower itself got hit twice that year. So yeah, this wasn't some random one-off situation. It was part of a deeply disturbing pattern for Vanessa, who had already been quietly telling friends that the security stress was suffocating her. This was the final straw. I mean, what mother wouldn't completely freak out after something like that? At this point, it wasn't just about the drama of being married to the president's son or dealing with the endless spotlight. It was about survival, about protecting her 5 kids, and the idea that any one of them could be harmed just because of who their father was. That was a weight Vanessa could no longer carry. Michael Cohen Trump's longtime attorney said it best when he asked, how disturbed must a person be to do what they did to a mother of 5 young children? And he's not wrong. Like, what kind of sick, twisted mindset do you have to involve someone's innocent family in your anger or political frustration? Even though the powder turned out to be harmless, just cornstarch. Thank God the emotional damage was already done. That trauma, that fear, that image burned into your memory of your mom, yourself, and someone else being rushed to the hospital that doesn't go away just because test results come back negative. That lingers. Vanessa later tweeted her thanks to the emergency team, saying, I appreciate all the quick response to make sure that I was safe. Thank you. And Don Jr. posted on Twitter too, expressing gratitude that his wife and kids were safe, but also calling out how messed up it was that someone would even think to do something so vile. His sister Ivanka chimed in as well, saying no one deserves to be frightened this way. And honestly, she was right. But beyond the statements, beyond the tweets, there was a deeper shift happening in Vanessa's mind this moment. As terrifying as it was, kind of brought everything into sharp focus for her. You know, those moments in life where it's like a switch flips, and you suddenly just know something has to change. This was that moment for her. The realization hit her like a freight train. My kids are not safe. And as long as we're in this world, this political circus, they might never be. That's not something you can unrealize. You know, they always said Vanessa Trump was the quiet one. The one who kept her head down, stayed out of the spotlight and never stirred up trouble. But guess what? Still waters run deep. And now we finally know why she really left Donald Trump Jr. It wasn't some petty tabloid drama. What kind of pressure was she under, and why did she stay as long as she did? before finally pulling the plug stick around because once you hear what really happened, you'll never see her the same way again. Why Vanessa Trump pulled the trigger on her divorce. Vanessa Trump's decision to finally walk away from Donald Trump Jr. in March 2018 wasn't some sudden impulse. No, this was a storm that had been brewing for years, and when it finally broke, it broke hard. You know how sometimes someone seems like they've got it all. Big name, glamorous life, beautiful kids. And then you find out behind the scenes, it's a whole different story. That was Vanessa. From the outside, it looked like she was living this ultra-luxurious life, married to the president's son, but inside the walls of that marriage, who had a completely different vibe. So let's unpack this slowly. Because Chile, the layers here, they're thick for 12 years. Vanessa stayed married to Don Jr., and you'd think with all that time and all those family connections, she'd have some kind of ease, right? But nah. Turns out she was under a lot of pressure from the media, from the political circus, that was suddenly a daily part of their lives, and from the growing distance in their marriage. But get this, one of the turning points, the real aha moment for her came when she suddenly had financial independence, I know. Right, it's wild how money changes the game. According to page 6, Vanessa inherited millions from her dad's investment in Rao's specialty foods. You know, that bougie pasta sauce brand. So basically this unexpected windfall gave her the breathing room she never had before. It's like once the financial leash loosened, she could finally take a deep breath and ask herself, why am I even still here? And it's not like the money was just a bonus. It was a necessity. Can you believe sources said? Don Jr. basically treated her like a second-class citizen. Not just emotionally, but financially. He reportedly kept her on a super tight budget. So tight that she had to ask her mother for money just to cover her personal expenses. So when she filed for divorce, she did it in the most low-drama way possible. Or so it seemed at first. She went the uncontested route, which basically means they both agreed to play nice when it came to things like custody and dividing up assets. Honestly, that's kind of rare for the Trump family, right? A lawyer even said it's the saner and healthier way to go about divorce. Which, yeah, facts, but let's not get ahead of ourselves because, of course, things didn't stay neat and tidy for long. By July, it turned into a contested divorce, and you know what that means? Disagreements, custody, money, probably even who gets what couch. That's when things got messy, which was pretty on brand for the chaos that surrounded them. Now the timing of her filing. Oh girl, that was no accident. Just a few weeks before she pulled the plug, there was this terrifying incident where she opened a letter filled with white powder. Can you imagine being a mom of 5 and opening something like that? I don't care how strong you are. Something like that shakes you to your core. That was a wake-up call. And it turns out they weren't even really together at that point. People who knew them said they'd been living separate lives long before the Trump presidency even kicked off. One friend even spilled that Vanessa had already been interviewing divorce lawyers way back. She was already exploring her options, just waiting for the right moment to move. But then Don Jr.'s dad ran for president, and one total plot twist. Suddenly, her already strained marriage got dragged into a political tornado. She tried to stick it out for the sake of appearances, maybe even thinking she could wait until the term was over, even though the whole thing was messy. Vanessa handled it with so much grace. She and Don Jr. even put out this super civil joint statement about how they were going their separate ways after 12 years, and how their 5 beautiful kids would always be their top priority, co-parenting after divorce. By July 2nd, 2018, before the divorce was even finalized, Vanessa and Donald Jr. already had a written custody agreement in place. No public shouting matches, no nasty court battles, just two people doing what needed to be done for their children. Vanessa got primary custody, and she's been raising the kids in Jupiter, Florida. And speaking of the kids, Kai, their oldest, is killing it in golf. Like she's not just playing around for fun. She's already committed to the University of Miami golf team for the 2026 signing class. Can you imagine being that focused and accomplished at 17? Total rock star, and, both parents are cheering her on, even if they're doing it from opposite sides of the course. Now here's the part that really caught people off guard. The relationship between Vanessa and the Trump family didn't just dissolve into bitterness. In fact, it stayed surprisingly warm, like she's still showing up for family events. She even attended Trump's second inauguration in January. That's not something you do if you're trying to burn every bridge, right? One source even said the Trump family has managed to keep a close bond with Vanessa, which, considering how messy these things can get, feels kind of rare and maybe even a little refreshing. And let's not forget the holidays after the separation. They still came together for Easter. They took the kids to Mar-a-Lago and even to the White House. Easter egg roll, that's co-parenting done with some serious grace, under pressure. But of course, they're still human. They're not besties now. One source close to them put it bluntly. Donald Jr. and Vanessa are not fond of each other, like at all, and here's the kicker. They've both made it super clear that their kids come first, so even if there's tension or awkward silences or eye rolls during drop-offs and pickups, they don't let that seep into how they raise their kids. And isn't that kind of the best you can hope for in these situations? They're smart about boundaries too, according to people close to the family. When it comes to vacations, they might be in the same zip code for a couple of days, maybe overlap slightly on a beach or something, but you won't catch them sharing a cabana. Separate accommodations is the name of the game. It's that whole, we can both show up, but we don't need to sit next to each other. Energy totally fair. Honestly, Vanessa especially has kept things very grounded. She's known to be super protective of her kids, which makes sense because she's essentially raising them with a last name that carries a spotlight, whether they want it or not. She knows what that pressure can look like, and she's doing her best to keep their lives normal as it can be. When your grandpa was president of the United States, and your dad's all over social media, right, Don Jr., for his part gets credit too. People who know him say he's a very involved dad, like really present, so even if their relationship didn't work out, he didn't just piece out of fatherhood and love him. Or not, you've got to respect a dad who still shows up for his kids, even when everything else is complicated with this. We have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content to enjoy more thrilling stories. Click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.